Welcome back. This is Vectorworks tutorial video 8. Today we're going to be taking our black box space and our two-dimensional proscenium space and we're going to be blowing them up into 3 dimensions. Now this is an exercise that we're going to be doing in class, but I figured I'd go ahead and record this as a tutorial in case someone misses class or if you just feel like going back and revisiting some of this a little bit later on. So we have already built everything in a two-dimensional space. That's what we're looking at now is our two-dimensional ground plan view of the black box space. I think we'll start with that space because it's the process is going to be a little simpler. And I'd like to actually show you 2 different ways of making walls and bringing things into 3 dimensions today. You've already gone through the tutorial with some basic 3-dimensional tools, and we're going to use a lot of those when we get into the proscenium. But today I'd like to actually start with the black box using some of the built-in tools that Vectorworks has. So we're going to go down here to our building shell palette. And that brings up a whole tool set here, such as wall tool, window tool, and door tool. We'll use those, and that'll actually make our workflow a lot smoother. So I'll show you how those go, and let's get started. We'll notice here we are in the design layer that we have labeled ground plan. And then we also have another design layer for seating, which adds in all of these different elements. What we're going to do actually is just create a new layer on top of all this, and we will call this 3D. That is super intuitive. So now we're in 3D. We want to make sure that we can just use what we already have to trace over that. There's no point in going back and re-entering all the dimensions. We already have all the dimensions here, so we're just going to trace this shape that we have on our two-dimensional one. To make sure that we're not messing up the geometry of our two-dimensional ground plan, just make sure that you're on Show Snap. If you're on Show Snap Modify, that means you can get in and accidentally tweak something on your two-dimensional ground plan, but we just want to be on Show Snap. You could also keep it on Gray Snap. Then you just get the outline. But you do want to be able to snap to it because that will make creating your walls easier. So let's take a look at our wall tool here. Select the tool. Then if you remember up here, we can get in and we can change all of our different settings. So let's look at our preferences for this tool. In here, we can change the thickness of the walls. If you check your paperwork, you'll note that all the walls for this black box theater are 6 inches, so this is perfect. Insertion options. We can play with the different heights in here. How high is this wall going to be? This wall, we're going to make it 13 feet because that is the height of the grid. We could make it the actual building, it would go a little bit higher and there would be HVAC and other equipment up there, but we'll make it 13 feet just so we know that that's where our grid is. And click OK. So now the walls that we draw are going to be 6 inches wide and 13 feet tall. It's very similar the way you lay this in to our double line tool. You can choose which corner you're going to be clicking on and which side it will follow you on. So we'll click this one. Then I'll just start here on this corner. Because I have Show Snap on, it's snapping right to our 2D ground plan. It'll come down to this one, and this one, and then I'll just close that off. Right there. And that has drawn our 4 walls. Even though it looks like one surface, you'll notice it is 4 different walls. And what's nice about that is since it's separated for you, you can make each of these their own class so that you can toggle the different walls on and off if you want to get in and see what's happening. But if you look now, there are our 4 walls in 3 dimensions. Easy peasy, right? So let's go back to top plan view. Now let's take a look at our door. So the door tool is very similar. Again, you can come up here and you can change your preferences. And just to double check, all of our doors on here are 7 feet high and they are all 3 foot wide. So with our door tool selected, we'll come up here to our preferences and here we go. 3 foot wide, and we'll change this to 7 foot high. And that's really all we need to do for now. You can come in and you can add, all sorts of decorative stuff, and you can make this door be whatever you need it to be. There are a ton of options in here, but we're not going to get too far into that. But you can pick any number of doors. I just keep it unstyled and change the basic dimension. So click OK once you have your size. And then this is super intuitive. Because we're tracing over our 2D, it'll snap right into where it should be. So if you get it close, it'll snap in, click it once, and then you can move your cursor around to tell it which side you want the door to swing into. There we go. There we go. And you'll see as we're doing that, it's dropping doors in as we go. Go back to top plan. If you have a number pad, I just pressed 0 as the hotkey to get us in there. With snapping, it just drops right in over our previous drawing. That saves a lot of time. Now, something else you could do, say you have just that one door there, you just select that door, and you could also mirror it so it works the same way as a lot of our other operations. Grab your door tool again. There we go. And that should be all of our doors. So now if we turn off our two-dimensional ground plan, so I can change that here in visibility, we're left with just our three-dimensional space. Now when you insert using these tools, what you're actually doing is inserting what's called a hybrid symbol. So that's actually two things in one. It is the actual 3D geometry here that you see. And then it also, when you go to a top view plan, defaults to a different 2D image. So you'll notice when we come to the top plan, it has this look. But as soon as we go into just top or any other, it has this look. So this actually, if you wanted to just build it in 3D and then look at it from a top plan view, that would give you a really nice looking ground plan. So that's an option. But just to know that when you're working in here with this building shell tool set, it's going to give you hybrid symbols that have one look if you're in top plan and another look if you're in 3D. Now, the only other thing we need to add is our little window here. So this window floats on this wall. It's centered on the wall. So we know we just have to find the center point of this wall, which snapping will take care of. We know it's 5 feet across, and we know it is, if we look at the front elevation, we know it's 4 foot tall, and it's 6 feet off the ground. Let's come in here, and let's take our window tool. Same thing, let's go into preferences, and let's tell it exactly the kind of window we want. We want it to be 5 foot wide. We want it to be 4 foot tall. And our elevation, we want to be 6 foot. And again, you can change what this looks like. You can add mullions, and you can add all sorts of different casings and things like that. But for this, I'm just going to leave it as a really simple sash. Then we'll click OK. Then you'll see it brings up a little 5 foot wide window stamp, and you just kind of go around and it'll lock in that midpoint. There we go. That seems a little off. What happened when I set my 6 foot, actually, so if we select this window, select just the window, we can come over here to Object Info, and again, it will show us all sorts of stuff. So I have elevation set at 6 foot, but the question is 6 foot to where? So right now it's referencing 6 foot to the top. of the window. So we want it to come 6 foot to the sill at the bottom of the window. And there we go. So now we have 6 foot to the bottom of that. And you could, if you wanted to, just confirm that with your little tape measure. 6 foot. So that is the shell for our black box. We do still want to take a quick look at our seating. So let's jump over into our seating. And I'll grab 2 of these. So I'll grab our 2 different styles of seating. I'm just going to copy these and drop them onto our 3D. No point in tracing over them and all that. Let's just copy them. Control C to copy. I'll go back to my 3D. And I will paste. Control V. So now I have these. This is really just a bunch of 2-dimensional shapes. A bunch of flat shapes that are grouped together, if you recall how we built those. So what I'll do is ungroup them, right-click in the group, and then just go to ungroup. So now we have all these different little shapes. And really, all we have to do is add elevation to them. So I'll do this at an angle so you can kind of see it happening as we go. So this one and this one. Again, you can reference this on the handout. You'll see we have all of our dimensions on here. So each of these steps up 6 inches as we go up our riser. So those ones, Control E to extrude, 6 inches. This one, Control E, 1 foot. And so on down the line. These ones will be is 2 foot. 2'6", so 30 inches. And 3 foot. See, we have all of that. I'm going to just select all of that. And then we're going to just combine it into one object. So go up to Model. If you recall, 2-dimensional modifications are in Modify. Model has all your 3D tools. With everything selected, we'll just go to Add Solids. Now this is one solid object. That's that. Similarly, you can break this one up, ungroup, and just walk through these. So that's all been done now. Again, I'll just drop all those into one object. Now, that was a little tedious having to go step by step and change the elevation of each one and just extrude each and every step. When we get into our proscenium theater, I'll show you a way that you can do it a little bit easier. So we'll take a look at that on the next part of the project. But for the most part, that is all of our 3D stuff. And you can just take these, you can drop them into your space, and you're off and running. The last thing I would suggest doing, like I'd mentioned, is making these walls their own classes. And that's easy enough. Just select a wall, come up here to class. Right now it has no class, and just new class. We'll call that wall south. Class, new class, wall west, and so on and so forth. What that allows you to do when you're looking at this, say you want to get down into a perspective view, and your set is all the way over here. So let's drag that over there. So your set's over there, but you can't get a good angle to actually see what it's going to look like from an audience perspective. Just go into classes now. You can just turn off that south wall. There you are, and you get your camera right up in there. So that's why I like to separate my different building shell walls by class. Last thing to do is probably just save this file, save as, so that you're not overriding your good 2D one. And we'll call this Black Box 3D. There we go. That is our black box in 3D. So now let's turn to our proscenium stage. So very similar setup. I've got two files open right now. This is my working file. Let me get rid of that. And this one has all of our dimensions and such. Again, you should have a hard copy of that. So I'll try not to reference it too much. So looking at this, we have our 2D that we've done before. Just a flat 2D file. And that is sitting on design layer, ground plan. We'll add another design layer. Just right click in there and new. And we'll call this 3D. Similar to the last time, we're just going to be tracing over our 2D one. Make sure that we are on Show Snap Others. That way we can snap to all of these little nooks and crannies. And we will just start drawing over top of this. Now, I'm not going to use the wall tools that we had used before, because again, I want you just to get comfortable doing the geometry kind of the old school way, just with drawing it in there and extruding it. Not because you would normally use that to create a building shell, but because that's scenically what you'll end up having to do a lot of to get some of the more interesting shapes that you're going to want on stage. So making these walls, let's go ahead and do that with a double line. And the walls on this are all 1 foot thick. So I'll change it up here, 1 foot. And I will just go ahead. I will trace. It'll snap right to where we want it to. Just tracing the two-dimensional one that's underneath it. So now we've got our 4 walls. We can go ahead and add these in as well. There we go. Now let's extrude all of these. Again, I don't want to extrude all of them together because then they would all be tied together into one object and we'd have to get in and actually edit the extrude itself. I want to be able to separate these walls out with classes later, so I'm going to have to extrude all of them one at a time, but Control E, 24 foot is the height of these walls, and then I'll just go around. And it will autofill whatever you entered last as your extrusion. It will autofill that. So you can just walk yourself around. Control E, return. Control E, return. Extrude, return, and then lastly, extrude, return. So what we've got now is all of this. The next thing I'll probably want to do is our little stage area. So we'll just trace this out. I'm not going to worry about trying to cut in around these proscenium walls. I think I'll just make one big shape and they can overlap, and that's just fine. I'm going to do this using our polyline tool. So with polyline selected, again, you have several different options here. I'm going to start in corner vertex, which is straight lines. And I will just start tracing the straight lines across here, here, here. And then in the middle of the operation, you can switch. So I want to switch over to this point on arc mode. That's the one where if you click 3 points, they'll all land within the curve. So 1, 2, and then click there to close it. And that is our stage shape. Then I'll just extrude that, Control E, and I believe it's 3 foot. There we have it. Now we need to make this little header that runs between those two sidewalls, right? So there's a couple different options on that, but I think what I'm going to do is just draw a rectangle on here and pull it all the way across to meet. So with my rectangle tool, I will hover over here. Again, if you have automatic enabled, as soon as you hover over a surface, it'll turn blue, and that means go ahead and draw there. And I'll just start pulling down. It's auto-filled X because it's snapped to that edge, so it knows it's 1 foot wide. So I'll tab into here, and I want to go -3 foot. Again, that dimension, you'll find it on the paperwork. And then I'll just click it and pull it over to here. Snaps right in. Now it gives me this little line in between there. So let's go ahead and make these two objects one object. This one's already selected. I'll just hold down Shift and select that one. So I've got both of those selected. Model. And add. There we go. There we have it. And then we can go ahead and we can start dropping in doors and all of the other stuff like that. We could do doors kind of the old school way as well if we wanted to. But the other way to do something like that would be to come in here and actually draw on the surface. So we know the stage comes up to 3 foot. And we know that this door is 10 foot wide. So I go 3 foot, tab, -10. So that's where the stage is. Hit escape, and then I would draw this, which is our -10 by 9 foot. 9 foot, -10 foot. There we go. Click that, and I just push it through to the other side. And I can get rid of this one that was really just telling me where it is. And so you'll see there's our doors at the back of the theater. So now let's go ahead and start dropping in real quick the rest of our doors on the top plan. So basically what we need to do is just draw shapes in space, and then we can subtract them from this solid. So this one is going to be the easiest. I'll just draw a little box there. I will extrude that up 7 foot. Again, all of these doors are really quite simple. They're the same 7 foot tall by 3 foot wide as in the black box. So now we have that object in the middle of the wall. So I'll select the wall also. Shift will allow you to select multiple objects. And then we'll go up to Model and Subtract. It'll ask you which object do you want to be subtracting from. We want to be subtracting from the big wall. So that's marked red. That's correct. You can switch if you wanted to. Go like that. And there's our hole for that door. Go back to top view. Draw that. Control extrude 7 foot. Now this one is sitting on the stage, so we want to lift this one up a little bit. So we go to Object Info, Shape. We just change the bottom Z, if you remember from Lesson 7. 3 foot. So now that is 3 foot up in the air. Right there. And then I will select both of those. Model, Subtract. Okay. And we will just continue running this operation. 7 foot. Bottom Z. 3 foot. And so on. Last one. How high is this one off the ground? Let me double check. It is 6 foot off the ground. So this one, we'll draw little shape in, and Control Extrude, Control E to extrude. 7 foot's correct, and it will be 6 foot off the ground. Correct. Now let's draw our window on the back. We could do a very similar thing, but just to mix it up. So what we could do is simply draw another box here, extrude it, I believe, 4 foot, and then lift it up 12 feet. But let's try something different, just to show you how you can kind of draw on the wall. So this one we know is a 10-foot wide window. So I'll do my double line at 10 foot. I'll snap to the middle of this. For it to turn blue. And I'm going to go up 12 foot. The window itself, so that's really just telling me where to place it. The window itself is 4 foot high by 10 foot wide. So I'll just draw a rectangle on here. And I'll have to tab in 10 foot, tab over 4 foot. And then grab that with one click with a left click. Then I'll push it through to the back side of this wall. There we go. We'll just get rid of this guy. So there's all that. Now, we get to the tricky part. The tricky part here is going to be having all of these different stairs coming up at different heights. There's a lot of different ways that you could do this, I suppose. You could select each one. You could draw out all of these different rectangles and extrude them, which would look like this. That, Control, Extrude, 6 inches. And so on and so on. The other option would be to actually create a shape on its side that has the correct profile and then flop it down. Let me show you exactly what I mean, because it's a little heady. But so we know all of our steps are 6 inches high, and they step up as we move from step to step. So what I'm going to do is make this 6 inches. So I'm going to build the profile along here. I'm just going to run 6 inches there. And I'm using these other ticks as guideposts. It's really weird, but trust me, once we get there, it'll make sense. Click somewhere I didn't want to, just hit escape, and we'll undo that. There we go. So that's what the side profile looks like. So what I can do is grab all of those, and I will combine them into a single shape, add surface. So that is the side profile of what our stairs are going to do. Now I will extrude that 50 feet. So now we've got our stairs, but they're just sitting like that. So now all I have to do is look at it from the front view. And I can just get my little rotate tool here. And I will pop it down. Selection tool. And then I just have to drag this all into space. I didn't get it quite right on there. So there's our steps. Again, that second way of doing it is it's a little, kind of have to wrap your head around it a bit. But it's a good way to kind of run that operation if you're dealing with something that has a lot of different steps to it. Again, you could just come in, boom, extrude 6 inches, similar to what we did with the seating in the black box. Control extrude 1 foot, and so on and so forth. But that is our proscenium theater. It's all in there. It's ready to go. Again, I would probably encourage you to grab these walls and just give them their own class, especially this back wall. These other ones could likely stay, but I do want to be able to disappear that back wall. So class, new class, wall, south. Now I can toggle that on and off if I want to. Get in, have a look at our beautiful new proscenium stage. There you go. Thanks for watching. Coming up next, we're going to be looking at a little bit more 3D tools. We'll get into some of the more elaborate tools, but that'll give you a little bit more nuance when you get to working on your drawings. All right. Thanks very much. Feel free to reach out with any questions. Bye-bye.